All right, this might be my favorite rant. I love this. It's about calories. The reason I love this is because everyone likes to argue about this. There's scientists arguing with scientists. They're all button heads. Almost every single diet plan out there is calorie based. It's either counting a specific amount of calories. A lot of the macros, it kind of feels like it's not calorie based, but when we're counting the grams of protein, grams of fat, grams of carbohydrate, and then eating a certain amount of those, that equals a certain number of calories. So we're basically calorie restricting. We're just doing it within these different categories. And so the problem and issue I have is that I think the science behind calories, eating too many, too few, yada, 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 is solid. The amount of calories we're eating does matter, but I don't think it's very useful for us. I think counting calories is a waste of time, and I don't think it's taking into the perspective. So let's look at this for a second. So if we're going to count calories, or if we're going to count grams of whatever, we're going to count macros, we're doing flexible dieting, the zone diet, whatever we're doing, if we're going to count things, we have to kind of know something. First of all, the nutrition labels are allowed to be plus or minus 20% off. So if they say something is 1,000 calories plus or minus 20%, that means it might be 800 or it might be 1,200 calories. Okay? So when we look at this, we also know how incredibly smart the food industry is. And do you think that the food industry is getting it wrong this way in a calorie-obsessed place? No, they're getting it wrong this way. So they're able to label things 1,000 calories, pumping in extra calories in there. And they do that just sugars and these other things to make it more habit forming. So it's worse than this. It's not a matter of, I think I've eaten 2,000 calories, and that could be 1,600 or 2,400. That would be plus or minus 20%. It's not like that because the error is on every piece of food that you eat. Okay, so it's not just you eat one thing that's been calculated. You're eating a meal that has how many things that you're trying to estimate calories on. And then not only are you estimating what you're eating with serving sizes and these other things, and if you're weighing and measuring, even if you're estimating what you're eating, you're using a formula that can be plus or minus 20%. So every meal has all these individual items that can be plus or minus 20%, and that happens across the day. So the error range across a day of food is almost mathematically crazy. We can't do anything with it. We've got no clue. We don't know if you're even plus or minus 20% of what you think you're eating. Okay, so not only we talk a lot about the lipostat and how your body controls and regulates your hunger and all of these things. Let's say you're eating 2,000 calories, and let's say 2,000 calories is your number, but you're eating that with, say 2,000 calories, but you're eating that with sugar and all, not sleeping and not exercising and doing all it, living a sedentary life, then that means your lipostat is jacked up to basically infinite. You're eating 2,000 calories, so what's your body going to do? It's going to shut you down. Okay, it's actually going to make you use less energy because it's trying to conserve to make the calories you eat plus your body fat match up with your lipostat. Okay, so it's going to shut you down so it's not burning extra fat, and it's going to stress you to eat because it thinks it needs more calories with where your lipostat is stuck. Okay, so this is why 95% of diets fail, because people are counting calories without taking into account this big picture. And so what happens is, yes, you can over and over and over again eat what you think is 2,000 calories. Again, that's not right anyway. But even if you were able to do it over and over and over again, your body is trying to get here if we're not taking into account the rest of it. So we're just destined to fail. So that's kind of the first piece of it. First of all, the reason we don't count calories is because It's a terrible estimate. It's a really terrible estimate. Other things, it's calories in versus calories out. So how are we going to determine calories out? There's all sorts of apps out there. You weigh, track, measure, do things with your food, eat exactly you think you've got. It's like perfect. I hit my macros. I hit my calories today. Awesome. First of all, that number's wrong and it can be off by a lot. Second of all, those apps typically let you say, oh, this is how much exercise I did. Oh, my watch, it counted up how many steps and it told me this is how many calories I burned today. So now we can add calories in and calories out and we can kind of get these formulas. So let's look at calories out. Man, it's not just what you eat. From your mouth to your butt is a tunnel. Okay, nothing is actually inside you until it absorbs inside you. And the fact of the matter is not everything gets absorbed inside you. So when you eat a bunch of protein in one sitting, the research shows that for most bigger males, average sized males, 45 grams of protein is about all your body can absorb at one time. So let's say that person eats 60 grams of protein, among other things in that meal. That is 15 grams of protein that isn't going to be absorbed, passes right through. So if we're tracking that in calories, it doesn't count. Those aren't calories in. Okay? So different foods are also handled in different ways. The way a gram of sugar is metabolized is different than a high fiber thing, is different than protein, is different than fat. All of these are metabolized differently, which means your body uses a different amount of energy to turn that food into whatever it's going to use it for. So there's just so many factors here that go into how accurate your calories in and calories out can be. The other things can be, like we see in the lipostat, is when we're here and our lipostat is here and we're eating this, our body shuts us down. So our resting metabolic rate is going to be very, very different than if we're here and our lipostat is here. Now our body's not shutting us down. Let's say we eat here, okay, and our lipostat is here. Our body is still shutting us down and making us feel hungry. If we're eating here and our lipostat is set here, now our body is actually burning energy and making us feel full. So the calories out, our internal temperature actually goes up to burn calories and our body gets us to start fidgeting around. So this isn't accounted for in just the calories in. I ate 2,000 calories today, okay? It matters greatly where that lipostat is because that affects a lot of things. Just really the amount of exercise, if we're doing long, slow cardio, the little Fitbit things love giving us a ton of credit because we've got an elevated heart rate for a really long time. But it doesn't account for the metabolic changes that happen that day, the next day, or the next. If we're doing high intensity exercise like CrossFit, you don't get like any credit on those things, but we know that across the day, they kind of even out. And the reason we tend to lean towards the functional high intensity exercise takes way less time. There's that longer distance aerobic stamina benefits from the short intense intervals, but there's also the strength gain, muscle gain, and all bone density. All of these other aspects of high intensity exercise brings along with it. But there's really no way to track. If I ask you how many calories you burned today, there is no way to know. So how can we know how many calories to eat? So this is why this intuitive type of eating is so incredibly important, because your body knows how to do this stuff. As long as we're not getting triggered with a supernormal stimulus, just like those birds sitting on giant eggs, as long as we're not falling for the food industry's tricks and traps of adding sugar, removing the fiber, doing all of these things. Fiber, there's another one. If you eat foods with fiber, vegetables, fruits, not everything gets absorbed because that fiber actually coats your intestines to push about 15% of that food down to your microbiome. The fiber doesn't get absorbed into your body because it's being used to get nutrients to different parts of your body. So that's another example, something you eat that it doesn't actually go in. So that goes into this category. So long story short here, calories, macros, all of these things, maybe it's okay to check in just to see, just to be curious, but know that what you track is not right. And then know we've got no way of telling what you're exporting out anyway. Okay? No way to know. Different foods are handled differently. Different times of day. Sorry, I just keep rambling on and on. I just keep remembering these things. If you eat a high carbohydrate meal first thing in the morning or after exercise, you're so much more sensitive to insulin. Those foods get handled extremely differently than if you're eating it not at those times or outside of your eating window. Food gets handled so differently within its context. So for me, and my advice is there's no reason to track it. Not only is it really hard to do, I don't find it very useful. I find it useful learning how to move that lipostat to be at a level so the signals that you're getting from your brain are exactly in line with the choices that you want yourself to make. And as soon as those two things match up, your body takes care of the rest. That's all you got to do. Hope this helps. Talk to y'all soon.